Story 1. I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions of years before I was born and had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. Mark Twain. Story 2. I lived with crippling existential panic attacks until I internalized a simple line of logic. Fear is a response to the perception of inescapable danger. If there is no possibility of escape, fear is pointless. Death is inescapable. Thus, fear of death is pointless. That realization freed me, allowing me to deeply and meaningfully accept death's inevitability. Story 3. The thought of dying was terrifying to me as a teenager. The older you get, the more you start to contemplate mortality. It's the cycle of life. If it makes you feel better, everything else is going to die too, so you won't be alone. Story 4. I can't wait, but I think I will have a harder time coping with the death of my loved ones than with my own. Story 5. Death is not bad. It is a gift, a necessary stopping point. Death is what makes life precious and enjoyable. Besides, it will arrive for us all the same, regardless of whether we run from it or dread it. So we might as well embrace it if that is what makes us happier. Story 6. I hope it happens well after my children are grown and within a year of my wife passing away. I can accept dying after living a long life and being the man my family needed me to be. Dying many years before that does frighten me. Story 7. I acknowledge that I need to die so the next generation can have life. We only borrow our bodies from Mother Nature. Eventually, we have to give them back. Story 8. I find it difficult to accept that some of the people I love will die before me. This has always been my experience. I am the youngest in a large family, and my parents were in their 40s when they had me. I witnessed most of the previous generation pass away before I turned 40. I have lost siblings and would prefer not to lose anyone else. Story 9. To paraphrase Socrates, being afraid of death is like pretending to know something you actually don't. The truth is, nobody knows what happens after we die. It might even be the best thing that ever happens to us. But people act like it's the worst thing possible, as if they have proof. That's not wisdom. That's arrogance. Real wisdom is knowing what you don't know. What I dread is the pain my death may bring to friends and family. I am not going gently into that good night either. Story 10. It actually excites me. I have listened to many near-death experience stories. The afterlife sounds wonderful. Story 11. I was told that I most likely had a month to live a few years ago, and all I worried about was my wife being able to take care of our dogs after I was gone. Strangely enough, knowing that I kind of accepted it instantly and moved on helped a lot. Also, don't take this as me trying to sound introspective or brave. I was sick enough to be on the verge of death, so my mind was probably operating at minimal levels of comprehension already. It's just comforting to know the mind can still shut out something so traumatic, or maybe we are just much better at accepting news than anyone expects. Story 12. I will wait until the day after I am gone to worry about it. Procrastination will keep me sane. Story 13. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so I sometimes forget that life is temporary. When I do remember, instead of having an existential crisis, I use that as motivation to do all the things I know I am capable of doing. I only have one life, so why waste it worrying about temporary things? Story 14. The moment you die, 260 children are being born worldwide. Think about the promises of their new lives. This inspires me. Story 15. I like that. I think living forever would be horrible. I appreciate this quote. Marla's philosophy of life, she told me, is that she can die at any moment. The tragedy of her life is that she doesn't. Story 16. I was talking to my wife just the other night while we lay in bed. The world, in my eyes, is becoming increasingly stressful. I'm only 41, and I suspect that by the time I reach my 80s, I will be exhausted by it all. I even mentioned to her that if I died in my sleep that night, I wouldn't care much. Not that I'm suicidal or don't want to live, but at the same time, when I look around, I feel worn out by this place. Story 17. I am excited about it. My life is great, and I am not depressed, but I am tired. I have a deep love for the people close to me, And that is why I get up each day to try to make their lives a bit better in any way I can. However, the thought of just not existing seems ideal to me. The only thing that scares me is if the religious people are correct and there is a hell. I don't think I deserve eternal punishment, and if it does exist, I still refuse to worship the being that created it, as they would be the most evil thing to ever grace this universe. Story 18. I feel scared when I initially think about it, but after a couple of minutes, I remember that everyone is going to die, and it's all part of the process. That said, I am afraid of the pain that comes before dying. Story 19. I have accepted it since a young age. The only thing that bothers me is leaving my friends and family behind. Story 20. It was refreshing last time. It will be just as refreshing or even more so next time. Everyone needs a rest once in a while. Story 21. It doesn't bother me. When it happens, there will be nothing I can do about it. I believe in life after death, that there is an afterlife and a higher power, where my soul will return for rest. Story 22. I am 61 years old and I have been very close to it twice. It does not scare me as much near the end as it did when I was younger, funny enough. Story 23. I'm 27, and I think about it every day. For as long as I can remember, I feel that memento mori is engraved in my mind. Story 24. The build-up to death, the moments before you die, is usually not in our control as it's a core survival instinct. No matter how accepting of death you may be, it will not stop the anxiety or response to stay alive. To live with the concept of certain eventual death, something that has brought me some peace, at least at this stage in my life, is reading about people who have clinically died due to rare circumstances but were resuscitated, sometimes multiple times throughout their lives. This occurrence is uncommon, but there are many such individuals alive today. Apparently, nearly every account of their death experience involves a profound sense of happiness, as if they were able to let go into peace and darkness. A typical response from those who have experienced actual death and were brought back is that they appreciated death so much that they tried to end their lives deliberately to return to that peace, and some may have succeeded. I don't know if this state is the same as full death, but even if it's not, it's the closest account I have encountered, and it has genuinely made me fear death less as a concept. Whenever I am having a difficult day or feeling overwhelmed by life, remembering that this is temporary and that the end is approaching, one day at a time actually calms me and I feel better automatically. Whatever floats your boat, I suppose. Story 25. I date women who are not right for my friends. I use cannabis occasionally. I maintain a healthy diet. I dress younger than my age. I consume a lot of fluids. I prioritize spending on comforts rather than savings. I tend to keep various items and mementos from memorable times. Although it may not seem like much, I have a box of keepsakes that looks disorganized. Story 26. The realization that time is the only current that matters has helped me tremendously. I am not a believer, so I don't know what happens next. However, if my life truly flashes before my death, I want to make sure it is the longest flash possible. Therefore, I take my time to embrace my surroundings, especially the people I love. Since I have been doing that, death isn't as scary. Story 27. When I was younger, I was afraid of dying. Now, as an adult, I have accepted that I am not going to live forever, and it has made me surprisingly happier. Not happier for a pessimistic reason, but happier in the sense that I feel more inspired to do good in my community and engage in small acts of service. If I leave the world happier than I came in and the world is slightly better because of my actions, I consider that a fulfilled life. Story 28. I believe life is an illusion. We are all just a collection of matter that has somehow convinced itself that it is sentient and therefore important when, in reality, we are an anomaly and will return to our natural state soon enough. I will just enjoy the show while it lasts. Story 29. I fear death, we all do. However, I also look forward to it. Not in a suicidal way, as I love living. I look forward to it because we all will finally know what comes after. The number one question on humanity's mind since we first started asking questions will be answered. Story 30. I do what I can to leave a positive impact on those I love. Hopefully, they will be able to feel my love and care after I die. Story 31. You do not think about it most of the time. Even when you do, it is of no help, so there is not much point to it. Story 32. I know it's a short and seemingly insignificant life in the grand perspective of our universe, but I still have feelings, and I am going to enjoy it. Story 33. I only worry about those I will leave behind. Will my kids and husband be okay? Since I do not believe in an afterlife, I do not fear nothingness because I will not even know there is nothingness. Story 34. Without death as an ending, life wouldn't really be that precious. I don't want to die anytime soon, but I accept its inevitability, and somehow it motivates me to appreciate all that I have in the present. Story 35. I had a mini existential crisis around age 5 when I realized it was a certain fact that I would die. The inevitability of it terrified me. I wouldn't say I'm afraid to die anymore. I have my own beliefs about what might come next, and if it's nothing, I'll be none the wiser. But I still fear the manner of death. The idea of being helpless and in pain, potentially for a while until eventually giving out, is still pretty unsettling. Story 36. It's quite unsettling if you ask me, but I manage it by not facing death directly. Merely thinking about it doesn't compare to actually confronting it, as in the case of a terminal illness. If I had a terminal illness, I would be extremely fearful and in tears. But alas, I live unaware of my expiration date. Story 37. I am feeling anxious about this situation, to be honest. However, in a way, it is actually helping me. It is motivating me to move faster and not waste any more time achieving what I truly want in life. Story 38. I was 23 when I had to face my own mortality after being diagnosed with leukemia. I reflected on what I hadn't accomplished, and once the pity party stopped, I realized that everything I feared was related to life. I thought about what I had done, what I hadn't done, what I would do, and what I wouldn't be able to do. Yet, not one single fear was truly about the act of not living. Every fear I've had was about living, not about dying. I am 33 now, and I focus on doing what I want in this life. I take time to appreciate views and moments and try to be grateful for the people and what I have. However, I don't think people realize that they are not afraid of death. People fear all aspects of life and the unknown, but I know very few who are afraid of actual death. Story 39. To quote Agent Smith, it's inevitable. So why worry about it? As grand as it might seem in movies, I really wouldn't want to be immortal anyway. Story 40. As someone who has struggled with anxiety my entire life, I find it comforting. It is the one sure thing in life. I am not rushing it by any means, but I am at peace with it. I lost a few friends at a young age, so every year I have lived past that has been a gift and an honor, even when it has been a difficult year. Story 41. I first thought about this when I was around 9 years old, as my mother was battling cancer at the time. She passed away 2 years later, and my father had died when I was 3. I was aware of death and its significance to me as a person from a young age. As an adult in the military, I was also conscious that I could die while serving, and it didn't bother me much as I had contemplated that possibility before joining. Now that I am 50 with numerous health issues and pain, I regard death as the conclusion of my life. I believe I have lived a decent life. I think you become more accepting of the idea of death as you age. In many situations, it can be a release from pain or frailty. Story 42. At this point, it would be more of a relief. I won't do it myself, but if someone drove their car straight at me or a building collapsed, I would be scared or upset. Story 43. Because I am statistically insignificant in the eyes of the universe. Plus, I will have uploaded my consciousness to the cloud, so I will live on in perpetuity. Story 44. Everyone will eventually die, and each day, you lose a part of your childhood and adult life to death and decay. Gradually, the world becomes something that no longer relates to you, except through great-great-grandchildren. It can feel as though you no longer belong, and you may wish to join others in complete and eternal silence. Story 45. Every day I wake up feeling disappointed and think, maybe tonight will be different. I deserve it. I've earned it. Even the Cubs finally won. Perhaps tonight will be my night. Story 46. My wife passed away unexpectedly about 7 years ago. It was quick and relatively peaceful. Ever since, I have stopped worrying about dying myself. Story 47. Each day, we gain wisdom. Each day, the world becomes more disappointing. By the time we pass away, burdened by disappointment, we are relieved to be gone. That is what I remind myself. Story 48. I believe my thoughts about the future keep me from worrying about it. Perhaps the future is better than what we have now. No one knows, but we will find out someday. Story 49. Well, I'm irritated that I cannot be an immortal vampire and amass a great collection of books and archives. However, my body is in poor condition, so if I don't get eternal youth and health along with eternal life, I don't want it. I've seen death, and I know what happens to the body in that process. I've been around it since I was a small child. Most of my family is deceased. It's inevitable. I'm not religious or spiritual, and I don't believe in an afterlife. I know that someday my body will stop functioning, and I will cease to exist, just as countless other creatures have before me. I do not fear death. Story 50. I believe you cannot live this life without facing death. It is as if, when you are born, you sign a contract stating that you get to experience life, but you must acknowledge that you will die at some point. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but death will come eventually. Story 51. It's nice to have something to look forward to, such as humor, while trying to avoid thinking about it too seriously. Story 52. By the time you are old enough to actively worry about dying, you are looking forward to it. If the chronic physical pain and shrinking pool of social peers do not affect you, then your growing understanding of how foolish others can be does. Story 53. Honestly, I am unfazed. When I am dead, I won't even know it. I don't have children or a partner at this stage, so if I died, I wouldn't really care because I would be dead. Story 54. Here and then I get stressed about work, money, health problems, and relationships. Then I remember, hey, you are going to die one day. The problems remain, but they don't seem so big anymore. Death will take us all, but first we have to live. Enjoy the ride, beautiful people. Story 55. I don't particularly fear death, but I do fear dying. Luckily, dying isn't imminent, so there's no reason to fear that at this moment. If I were actively dying, I would probably be quite afraid. Story 56. Don't cope. Embrace it. Do the things you want to do because you'll only be here once and time is ticking. Once you hit 35, it feels like time goes by even quicker. Do you have a country you've wanted to visit? Save up and go. Are you in a relationship without love? Talk it out with your partner or move on. Go on the hikes. Explore the sights. One day we'll all be on our deathbeds. And when I look back, I want to smile and say, we had a good run, didn't we? Then I want to go out knowing I've truly lived. Story 57. As I get older, I am more concerned about others dying than myself. Aging seems to be a process of gradually losing many things you love. People, places, abilities, and ways of life. Enjoy doing things while you can. Tell your loved ones that you love them, and cherish spending time together. Try to find as much happiness as possible in the time you have. It is shorter than you think. Story 58. Perfectly aware that you cannot cheat it, we might as well not dwell on it and try to enjoy our time here. Story 59. I strive to live as my authentic self, absorb knowledge and experiences, and engage in activities that bring me fulfillment. Story 60. There is no hard evidence that I will ever die. The evidence is circumstantial at best. The serious answer is, was I sad for the eons before I was born? No. Will I be sad for the eons that I will be dead? Refer to the first question. Story 61. Thinking about how awful being alive is most of the time. I'm not suicidal in any way. I have a fairly good life, to be honest, but the world is still as difficult as ever, and I cannot wait until I get to leave this place. Story 62. The knowledge of dying, literally realizing it every day, either makes you anxious or deepens your appreciation for the current moment. The biggest regret you could have is to realize that you never truly lived. Story 63. I'm okay with the fact. I just need to make sure my cat is well taken care of when that happens. Story 64. I live daily, hundreds of days each year, but I can die only once. How dreadful it would be to lose those hundreds worrying about one day. Story 65. I have started a notebook with information regarding who receives what, along with names, phone numbers, and account information. Story 66. Watching a video, I fell asleep and then woke up early in the morning, thinking to myself, what if death is like that? Story 67. What is the worst thing that could happen in life? They take your birthday away? It's going to be taken one day. You might as well enjoy your time. Story 68. I was afraid of dying until I thought I was about to die. As the car spun out and my brain raced 1,000 miles a second, I thought to myself, so this is the end. It was the most relaxing and calm feeling I had ever experienced in life, as if every stressor, every medical issue, and every weight the world had put on me had been lifted all at once, and it suddenly didn't matter anymore. The grocery list for tomorrow didn't matter. I would be dead. The car repairs, they didn't matter. I would be dead. My mom and brother having an ongoing fight, that didn't matter. I would be dead. I had never felt so calm in my entire life and so jarred when I didn't die. Then I had to deal with paramedics, whiplash, medical bills, and so on. Death isn't a punishment. It is our final release from being. Story 69. I find it easier to cope with things over which you have no control. That being said, your well-being is one thing you can control, but that is a topic for another day. Story 70. Why stress out over something I have absolutely no control over? Literally everything in the universe dies. I am not special in any way when it comes to this. Once I am gone, nothing is going to matter. So why spend any time stressing about it? Honestly, there are days when I feel disappointed waking up to face another day. I am currently dealing with the end stages of a genetic kidney disease I was born with. I have to hook myself up to a machine 6 nights a week for 9 to 12 hours. Dealing with the fatigue and overall exhaustion, it would be nice not to have to face this anymore. Story 71. At 46, I am not young, but I am not particularly old either. I have witnessed a lot of loss among those much younger. My perspective is that tomorrow is not promised, so every day is a gift. I do not fear death, nor do I dwell on it. It will come at some point, and I have accepted that. I enjoy my life as much as I can. I strive to do good things and care for others as well. Although I do not have children, I have tried to improve the lives of children wherever possible. To me, that is what living is, a gift to be shared for as long as we are fortunate to have it. Story 72. Do you realize that everyone you know will someday die? Instead of saying all of your goodbyes, let them know you understand that life goes fast. It's hard to make the good things last. Story 73. In my post-life review, I reflected, being human is definitely more exciting than being a dog, but I would probably choose to be a dog again next time because it's shorter and much more relaxed. I would certainly never choose to be a tree again. That experience was incredibly boring. Story 74. Distraction and medication. Death is my greatest fear and the main contributor to my anxiety. I try everything I can to avoid thinking about it. Story 75. I remember what Hemingway said in Midnight in Paris. It's something all men before you have done, all men will do. I believe that true and real love creates a respite from death. All cowardice comes from not loving or not loving well, which is the same thing. Story 76. I don't mind death. It doesn't bother me. Either there is an afterlife or there isn't, and if there isn't, I will never know anyway. I'm nervous about how I might die. I would prefer it not to hurt too much, but death itself is indifferent. Story 77. I viewed it less as an end and more as a rite of passage, the only truly universal one. While it may not be my first choice, it does provide some assistance. Story 78. Live every day as if it is your last. How would you like to be remembered? What would people say about you? Stay authentic and make each moment matter. Not for yourself, but as you choose to be. Who would you be? Choose now, the train is coming. Story 79. I am scared of the pain and process of death, not death itself. I would not be conscious to witness death anyway. Story 80. I cannot do anything about it. I am going to try to live as long as I can. One day I will fail in doing that. Story 81. I know people may dismiss this, but both my sister and a friend visited me after they passed away during separate events. It wasn't a full-on ghost experience. I felt their presence in the moment between being awake and asleep. They comforted me, and for the first time in a long time, my sister looked genuinely happy. I know these weren't dreams, and I believe there is something more meaningful beyond this life. I would prefer not to die in a tragic way, but at least I have hope for what lies ahead. Story 82. Life can be challenging. Eventually, we all face death. Then, our friends place us in a casket, bury us, cover us with soil, and eventually nature takes its course. It's important to appreciate that this occurs in a particular sequence. Story 83. It is inevitable, so why worry about it? I only have so much time on this earth, and stressing myself over things completely out of my control would be a poor use of that time. Story 84. I enjoy sleeping, and there was nothing that happened before I was born to give me any concern about what awaits me after I die. At this point, I am truly content with what I've done and see few things aside from death that I have yet to experience. The point is, it's always right there. It's inevitable, so why worry about it? How do you cope with the sun rising tomorrow? Story 85. I have never been anything but alive as far as I remember. Once I am eventually not alive again, I am sure I will not remember that either. This current iteration of my consciousness knows, has known, and will only ever know one thing. Story 86. Something my wife said. If death is the price I have to pay to live, I would die 1,000 times. I would never give up the feeling of eating ice cream, kissing my love, or playing music. The joys are endless, and death is finite. Story 87. I am turning 60 in a month, and honestly, aside from not being able to choose my method of death, I am more concerned about the inconvenience to my survivors rather than my own imminent death. I have grown tired of the horrors that living people perpetrate against each other and the planet. The comfort of nothing, no dreams, just nothing almost seems welcoming. I am not generally depressed or anything, but I have been thinking more and more about how much time I might have left, and I have come to the realization that I am okay with whatever I have left. I am anxious to see what is on the other side, even if that is just releasing my atoms to become part of something else. Story 88. My grandparents have passed away. My parents have passed away. My wife has passed away. My dogs have passed away. I do not want to linger aimlessly but would prefer to pass suddenly and provide a boost to my children's lives through my assets. In the meantime, I will continue fostering rescued dogs and nurturing them back to physical and emotional health so they can have a good life after adoption. As you can see, I have found a purpose for my remaining time. Story 89. I usually become anxious when I see someone die on Instagram Reels every 1 to 2 business days. In all seriousness, death can be both frightening and comforting. Everyone will eventually die, but it makes life all the more precious. We are fortunate to experience our lives. Eternal life would likely be worse than dying. Story 90. I'm 42 and still haven't worked it out. I wake up having panic attacks about it. I feel horrible for having kids, knowing they will die. Story 91. At some point, humanity may become extinct, or Earth may cease to exist, resulting in an event that could end the human race. Story 92. Life is like wrestling. The ending is predetermined, but it's not about the ending. It's about the story we tell along the way. Story 93. Being dead doesn't bother me. It's the dying process that concerns me. I also worry about the possibility of it happening before my child has a chance to reach adulthood. Mainly, I'm resigned to the fact that it will happen eventually and don't dwell on it. I try to make good decisions in hopes of extending the time I have, but alas, I'm still human. Story 94. I feared death not too long ago as friends around me passed away, and I somehow came to grips with it. Most of my friends were a decade older, so I faced the realization that it will come. Story 95. I find relief in the fact that one day it won't be my turn anymore. No more responsibilities, nothing more to do. It will be someone else's time to do all the work. Story 96. If I am, then death is not. If death is, then I am not. Why should I fear that which can only exist when I do not? Epicurus. Story 97. It's perfectly natural and safe. Can even be a relief, like taking off a tight shoe after a long day. Story 98. I don't think about it because it makes me very anxious. The idea of not existing anymore is scary. Not being here, not seeing family, not being able to take care of them, and not knowing what comes next. What does nothing feel like? I don't remember what anything was like before I was born, so I'm sure that is how death will be, but nothing scares me. I'll stop before I scare myself. Story 99. It makes me enjoy the donut if I want one because no one will remember me as someone who was always so skinny and a disciplined eater. So the thought of dying is somewhat freeing to me. Story 100. I have accepted that there is nothing I can do about it, and once it happens, I won't care because I'll be dead. I have too much to worry about right now and don't have the time or energy to focus on whatever happens in the end. It's coming regardless. Hopefully, I will have loved ones who care, and I won't leave too much of a mess behind for them to deal with, but they can't call me on a Ouija board to express their frustrations. Story 101. Eat, drink, laugh, be merry, and let death do what it does. Until then, continue to smell the roses and enjoy living among the rest of us. Live. Story 102. I don't really know why, but I've never been afraid of death. All I hope and pray for is that I die peacefully in my sleep in my 90s after saying goodnight to the love of my life and my animals. I try to live my life right and do good wherever I can to help those around me, and I hope that the universe sees fit to give me a peaceful end when the time comes. Being scared of an inevitability like death is not something that has ever occurred to me. I can see the rationale for other people when they express a fear of death. I understand the reasons people outline. They just don't apply to me. I think the only time I've really felt challenged by the idea of death is when I hear about tragic or painful deaths occurring, especially involving young people. In all honesty, I'm more afraid of my mother dying and having to live without her than I am of my own death. Story 103. I have read many accounts of people who died and then came back to life through resuscitation or other means. Almost everyone described a profound feeling of peace, with many expressing a reluctance to return. There was no fear or pain, and the experience was beautiful. Now, I no longer fear the dying process itself, which was my greatest fear. Since I believe in God, I have faith that I am going to a better place. These beliefs are why I am not afraid to die anymore. Story 104. I look forward to the next stage of existence, but I'm also in no hurry. I'm more concerned about how I will die, fearing it may be painful or prolonged, than about actually being dead. The grave holds no terror for anyone saved by Christ. Story 105. I have watched a few near-death experience stories, and they have made me feel positive about death and curious. Story 106. I tell myself that we absolutely don't know what death is about. The only thing we can say for sure is that when it happens, there is no coming back. However, it is impossible to determine if there is nothingness or if an afterlife exists. If an afterlife does exist, it is impossible to know in which form it may take. Ultimately, it is up to you. You get to choose what you want to believe in. For me, the thought of imagining that there is nothing after death is horrifying. So, I prefer to believe that it is not over once you die. It is actually not over. After all, when I was little, I had no proof that there was nothing after death. Yet I believed it. Story 107. I know that everything that ever was or will be will join me. I like to say it's the only party that everyone is invited to. Story 108. There is no point in feeling any particular way about it. It is going to happen. Everything eventually dies. Accept this as part of the gift of conscious existence and do what you can to prolong that existence without suffering more than necessary. Story 109. I have no fear of death. As I get older, I have even fewer worries about it. I tell everyone to get right with God, whatever that means to you. Story 110. I know it sounds terrible, but I hope to die younger than average. I don't want to be old, really. I'd be happy to pass away before the age of 50. Story 111. Having a terminal illness. Looking at death often feels like looking in a mirror. Every choice feels like a battle against death. As many users have said, we might as well make life enjoyable. Kiss your friends, have dessert, be late to work, and stop to smell the flowers. When thinking of death, I often focus on everything I will not be able to do instead of all the things I have done. There is so much more to life than dwelling on the negatives. Be proud of your progress and grateful for each day you wake up in the morning. Live for the people who love you, as many are impacted by your life. Choose happiness. Death isn't as scary as forgetting to live while you're alive. Story 112. Everything in the universe seems to fit together. It is like a great big mechanism. I do not know what the point of human life is, but I feel comfortable believing that it is not my problem to solve. Story 113. I fluctuate between feeling anxious and indifferent. It frightens me that I don't know what happens when we die, and I can't comprehend the idea that we simply stop existing altogether. I prefer the theory that we are all just energy and transition into new lives when we are ready. The concepts of heaven or hell offer me no solace. I am more afraid of losing the people I love than of my own death. Story 114. It's not your own death that you will never know happened. It's living through the death of loved ones. Story 115. I'm immortal. See, I was put on Earth to accomplish a certain number of things, and I am so far behind that I will never die. Story 116. I am in denial. I will deal with it when it comes and avoid thinking about it and reading threads. Story 117. I don't mind. I imagine someday a descendant will look at my name and see a significant point in my family tree and wonder how my wife and I managed. For the record, we have 7 children. Story 118. I am not religious, but I really enjoy an old Sufi poem on this subject. I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as a plant and rose to an animal. I died as an animal and I was human. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? Yet once more I shall die human, to soar with angels blessed above. And when I sacrifice my angel soul, I shall become what no mind ever conceived. As a human, I will die once more. Reborn, I will soar with the angels. And when I let my angel body go, I shall be more than mortal mind can know. Rumi Jalal ad-Din. Story 119. It can be difficult to accept that life has its ups and downs. Once you start to enjoy life, the inevitability of change can feel overwhelming. However, it's important to remember that while these thoughts may be daunting, they are not always as frightening as they seem. Story 120. I was confronted by this thought when I was young and was really shocked to know that one day it would be game over, in a sense that I no longer exist. The world continues to move, but I am no longer participating in it. However, over the years, in my mid-40s, after experiencing a crisis similar to a midlife crisis, I am no longer anxious about those thoughts or the fear of death. Perhaps my anxiety has become my motivation to pursue what I truly want to do in life and to love myself more, rather than doing what others want. Story 121. I focus on things that will make me happy and on being a good person. I help others who I see are suffering, and I keep mementos of those times. It always helps to remember that everyone struggles with something, and it gives my life meaning to be a support to others in hard times. Story 122. Others have said it, and I will say it again, live today. Consider this. This life of yours is your opportunity to experience everything you desire. You can either embrace these experiences and find joy in them, or you can remain inactive and live in fear of your eventual end. The choice is yours, but only one option will lead you to say, I wish I had insert thing you wish you had done here. I, for one, intend to carry no regrets with me when my time comes. My final words will be something like, well, I have experienced everything I wanted to experience anyway. Good times. I also share this as someone who has historically struggled with the concept of death. I have had to shift my perspective. Story 123. I live every day knowing the last thing I do will also be the easiest. Bring on the total cessation of consciousness. I need a nap. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.